So middle of the afternoon, I'm watching Jerry Springer ride. I'm the only one in the house. This commercial comes on and it's saying, hey, if you're sitting at home on your ass, not doing anything, and you want to change a life, give us a call, come join the trades. It was one of those technical schools, right? And so I'm looking around and I'm like, there's got to be somebody else in this room. And there wasn't. And so I was like, okay, if this is not a sign from God, I don't know what is.
Hi there, and welcome to Solar for All, a podcast focused on the intersection of race, class, justice, and equity, and the solar industry. I'm your host, Geoff Greenfield, and this podcast and the show notes from it and lots of other information and episodes can be found at our website, solarforall.show, and that's spelled out SHOW. With me today is our guest, Cesar Barbosa, with NuLife Power Services. He's been in the industry for as long as many of our guests. He's definitely a solar grandfather in solar years. He's worked for Regrid, Rio Goods, Verdant Power Services, SunPower, and he's the founder and I guess president, CEO, and maybe everything else on the list for NuLife Power Services, which is where I first met him. We actually did a project together where he came and with a crew took all the modules off of a big rooftop faster and more professionally than we ever could. And I think it's a great niche. We'll get into that and more during our podcast here. It's great to have you with us, Cesar.
So happy to be here, Geoff. Thanks for inviting me.
You're currently in Livermore, California. I think you went to college in Las Positas in California or Mexico?
No, it's in California, and I joke around. I tell people it's the Great Princeton of the West. Only that it was a community college, but you go to the East Coast, people don't know that. Yeah, it was our little hometown community college, straight out of high school. I realized within about a year and a half that it wasn't for me. I took a break, went into the trades, and then went back to San Jose, did some specialty training there. But no, man, I think I'd like to say my education has been in the hard knocks of the trenches. I learned my craft in the field, not so much in these schools. Just my story, not to say it's not right for someone else.
I love it. And when you say your craft, that's probably changed over the years. I know that you're a technical guy and you've been in a bunch of different roles, diagnosing, fixing, pulling wire, installing, et cetera. But today, if I had to make a guess, I'd say that 99% of your craft is leadership, and you've kind of crossed the barrier from doing the work yourself to working through others. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, you know what, Geoff, you kind of come to realize early on. I mean, I remember even in high school just having an influence on people, and not to say that I used it for the betterment of society back then, right? Being a knucklehead, but organically, I started realizing that was my true strength. The ability to influence others. I've always said that I'm certainly not the best solar installer. I'm certainly not the smartest guy in my company, and but there's one thing that has helped me throughout the years, and it's having somewhat of a character, not perfect, but certainly an ability to know what's right, what's wrong, and always want those people around me to win. Yeah, if it's leadership is the word we want to use, then so be it, because God knows we need more of that today.
I guess you can use a lot of different words to describe it. So you're starting to come back to kind of some morality and knowing right from wrong or having integrity. I make a lot of assumptions about that. But to be fair, if you really look hard at the world, there's plenty of people out there without integrity, and folks that are focused on a quick near-term win that might shoot themselves in the foot long-term. I don't know. I guess we can get sidetracked on what leadership is, but from following you for a while you're pretty active on LinkedIn, and you're helping to shape, our industry, and you're trying to attract new people into the industry and maybe kind of focus on where the industry needs to go. And I don't know exactly where that came from. Obviously, we were both knuckleheads in college or high school, and I think girls mature faster than boys, but I knew I certainly didn't really start getting serious about life and thinking about anybody besides myself until I was in my mid 20s. And I think that's just part of the natural progression is we start to think about the bigger picture and thinking about others.
Yeah, well, my wife, for the record, says she's still waiting for me to mature, but I've come a long ways from high school, and that's what I try to remind her.
Did you guys know each other back then?
We knew each other through a mutual friend long time ago. We didn't really have an eye for each other back then, but we knew of each other.
Uh-huh.
And we've been together for 5 years now. We got married October of last year, so that was kind of a ruckus in itself and amazing. But yeah, she actually works for the business, Jeff. I don't know if you know that, but Yadi, she's our multiple hats. Every day she says I throw a new responsibility her way, but yeah, she's an integral part of here, and probably I would say, and I've said this on LinkedIn before that my wife is her biggest role here is an advisor to me. The ability to be able to vent, ask for advice, all that has been totally invaluable. I tell her, like, look, if that's the only thing you did, like that'd be enough. That'd be worth enough what we're paying you. Problem is, I need help with all this other minutia stuff, so doesn't really have a choice. But yeah, love her to death, man. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her.
That's great to hear, and not an uncommon story in small business. It it's an ad hoc group of advisors and mentors and everyone else along the way. Were there other mentors in your life that? I mean, again, I bet you if you were, that just post knucklehead, working in the trades, earning a paycheck guy, I don't know if you would have seen yourself running the organization that you're running right now and doing all the roles that you are now. You've really grown. Have there been mentors along the way that have kind of encouraged you or had a special role in your development?
Oh gosh, yes, gosh, yes, Jeff. You know what's funny is my let me this is how it kind of all started, man. Funny story, right? So 2008. So I like to say this, man. One of the reasons I'm so passionate about solar is because solar literally saved my life, right? So we're 2008, right in the middle of 2008, or towards maybe latter end of 2008, I should say. I had lost my job at the time. The contractor I was working for, he went totally out of business, went from 40 employees to zero like that. He didn't even want to battle through it. He just said, "Hey guys, look, what's the point of me sticking in if our customers have all basically gone away, right?" So I was jobless like that. Had to move back with my parents, and sitting there one afternoon, and I like to say that the first person who kind of pushed me to change my life was Jerry Springer, and I'll tell you why. You remember Jerry Springer, Jeff? Was that a thing
Yeah,
back?
he's an Ohio guy. I think he was the
Yeah,
mayor
he
of
is.
Cincinnati.
Right. See, hey, we got to give everybody a shot, man. You never know. But so middle of the afternoon, watching Jerry and Springer ride, and then this commercial comes on, and it's like I'm the only one in the house. This commercial comes on, and it's saying, "Hey, if you're sitting at home on your ass, not doing anything, and you want to change a life, give us a call. Come join the trades." It was one of those technical schools, right? And so I'm looking around, and I'm like, there's got to be somebody else in this room, and there wasn't. And so I was like, okay, if this is not a sign from God, I don't know what is. And I didn't really have an excuse, man. I picked up that phone and I said, hey, I think you're talking to me. Like, what do you got for me? He's like, well, come on down and we'll tell you all about it. I think I signed up the following day. We started the week after, and for the first time in my life, I found something that just connected, which was electrical theory, right? Which was what it was, an electrical construction program, an intensive program of 9 months, Monday through Friday, like 5 hours a day, no breaks, no vacation, nothing.
Was that the San Jose City College program?
No, that was Corinthian College, or better known as Wyotech.
Okay, Wyotech. Okay, gotcha.
So out of like 200 students that year in the electrical program, I ranked number two. So I came out, with honor roll stages, something that I had never even, I got a C in Spanish, Jeff, when I was in high school, and I speak fluently. Just to tell you, what, how good I connected with this thing. And then I got picked up in solar, man. I mean, I was struggling to get to class because I was running out of gas money. A couple times, I remember sitting in the classroom, like worrying about how I was going to get back home because I had no gas, right? And so I couldn't even pay attention in the classroom because I was worried about having to freaking sleep in my car. I would let everybody go away, and then I'd come up to the teacher and like, hey, Mr. Smith, can you spot me $5? Little did I know they had a program because a lot of these people in these classes were in the same kind of predicament that I was, right? Trying to pick up a
Mm-hmm.
trade, trying to get back to work when there was, when the world was coming to, excuse my language. And so he pulls out his drawer, pulls out an envelope, and he's like, "Yeah, no problem. We have a program here. Just sign your name." And it was like a big list of like 20 people that were coming every day. And I was like, "Man, this whole time I've been stressing for the last 2 months." So, anyways, so then got picked up in solar. A kid in the back of the classroom. He's like, "Hey, man, I see that you really care about this thing," and I joined a company. This was Regrid Power out of Campbell. The McCalmans, Tom and Darlene.
Yeah, Tom and Darlene McCalmont, some of the my hero and heroines, and another husband wife team in the business together. So that kid in the back was working for Regrid or had gotten a job in Regrid, and he kind of recruited you and saying, "Hey, you might be a good fit."
He said, come give it a shot." They were having tryouts, which was to go into their office and drill a few holes on metal because this was commercial carports, right? And what they needed was manpower. So like, can you put a drill bit on a drill, and can you measure, right? And I was like, well, come on, man. Like, yeah, let me show you what I got. So we started the following week. Now, what was funny there, funny story is that we had worked back then, man. Solar 2009, man, on the commercial sector was still kind of ramping up, right? We were still learning things. We had a huge project, school district. I jumped on for like 4 months, making whatever we were making back then, right? I don't know, $15 an hour, if that. Somewhere between 12 and 15, who knows? And I was stoked. I was happy to be there, man. I mean, that was a dream come true, man. Like I was drilling holes for the first month, pulling wire for the second month, and installing panels for the next 4 months, right? So I like to say to my guys now, it's like, hey guys, I started in the trenches. Like, whatever you're doing now, I have done 10x, because we're more of a specialty company now. Anyways, what's funny, Jeff, is talking about mentors. What's funny is that I remember my first time as an employee at the company. I was in the back of that truck, and there was two guys in the front, and I was the second Latino in the whole company. It was like a company of 25, right? And I was the second Latino, not because they weren't open to anybody to work. It was just that back then, solar was more of like the hipster green movement sector. Get your friends and friends here, and so it wasn't something that was like launched to everybody and anybody. Like, it was really hard to get into this company, and you really had to prove yourself. So, anyways, we did, and I remember that my very first day in the back of that truck, I'm thinking to myself, man, in 10 years, I want to be where they're at right now. Now, listen to how limited my capacity was. I wasn't saying I want to be a manager, I want to be an ops manager, or even an owner. I wanted to be the freaking driver. I wanted to be the lead, right? Like, that's how
You want to sit in the front seat.
I want to be in the front seat in 10 years, man. And who would have known, to answer your question, did I ever think I was going to be here? Who would have known that in 10 years I'd be running a multi-million-dollar business? And where, as a second gen immigrant from Mexico, my parents are first gen. You can't do that anywhere else in the world, Jeff. And I know that, and I realize that, and now one of my purposes is to develop the new generation of blue collar workers. And then we have an amazing opportunity right now to do it with solar because it's still ramping up, and that's what I want to do. I tell people this all the time, man, and it's the God honest truth. I'm not as passionate about renewable energy as I am about developing people, because that saved my life. A lot of these kids that we hire, they come from low income families. We got about, maybe I would say, no joke, somewhere around 15 to 17 young adults, let's call them, right, 21 to 25-year-olds, that we pick them straight out of the fields here in Central California. Third generation field workers. These are U.S. citizen, like born born in the United States ki- uh, kids who all they've known their whole life because of their parents and their grandparents is field work, right? So they get out of high school and they already know we're going to go work in the field work. And it doesn't take long before you realize like, hey, what am I, is this it for me in life? And so then, you start trickling into gangs and drugs and problems. And it's a huge issue in a lot of these regions. It's a lot of gang activity. I know that because I came from that. I came from that background, being a knucklehead growing up in that world. And so we're pulling them out and we're saying, hey, here's a career, guys. Like here's an ability to break those chains. Here's an ability to travel the country. Here's an ability to learn a trade that's going to sustain you and your family for decades to come. And here's an industry that's not going anywhere, right? And so I got guys that have been with us for less than 7 months that are OSHA 30 and FP 70 certified. They went out and got all their forklift certifications. Like our culture here, man, is high standards, and it's always developing. If you want a place where you can cruise on by and just get a paycheck, hey, listen, we're all in different phases of our life. There's plenty of companies that are there. We're trying to take over the world, man. We're trying to be the leading decommissioning contractor in North America. Take those assets that are now becoming, legacy in North America, don't not throw them in landfills, but take them into these developing countries, which is what we're doing. We've repurposed over 50,000 solar panels in the last 2.5 years. Africa, Caribbean, Middle East, and then now recently we're focused in Latin America because there's a huge need for talent, resources, investment, circular economy, and product. Cheaper product. So anyways, man, sorry, I want to go on tangents about this.
We should probably call this the Solar for All show and Getting Sidetracked Fun Conversation show, because everything that's been going on has been great. I've made some notes. I want to come back to a couple things. First off, if we get sidetracked again, I want to call it out. NuLife Power Services is the name of your business. We're going to have links and information in the show notes of the website. But real quick, for folks that are just listening only, how can they find you? What's the best way to find you?
I'm on LinkedIn, Cesar Barbosa on LinkedIn. We have an Instagram page, a Facebook page. I don't hide my personal life from my business life. You're happy to follow me on those platforms as well.
And it's good stuff. You put out some genuine from the heart content, and it's useful for folks. You're encouraging. But I think that there might be some listeners out there that have an opportunity and they're like, wow, there's a specialist in decommissioning. There's a specialist in repurposing. I didn't know that.
Yes.
And so hopefully we'll be helping out some folks take these sites, repower them, or do a de-roof, decon, recon for a roofing upgrade. And then the whole concept of recycling modules. Obviously, I'm from that hipster green background, and reuse is way better than recycle. And so finding a second life for these in Latin America or Africa, especially since the tax credits are not a big part of the challenge there, a used module can be a very viable part of a project. We'll get into that in a bit. I want to come back. I got chills when you were describing, your early story, and then effectively just pointing out that you're an example of the American dream. What we call the American dream of this is a country of opportunity where obviously hard work's a big ingredient. But I think some of us, like myself, I came from middle-class background, college expectations, lots of encouragement. You need a check to buy your first, set up your bank account for your first business. We'll write that check. That's the tailwinds that a lot of entrepreneurs have. But there's so many thousands of other entrepreneurs where it's more of an uphill battle, and they've got headwinds, and yet they make it across the finish line. Or you're not across the finish line. We're always in the race, but you're further ahead than you were back then. And it's a great story. And I'm glad that you had some gratitude about it, and you recognize obviously hard work, maybe some luck, maybe some good people that gave you a chance along the way. Those are all ingredients. And I think that there's guys in your company that who knows what they're going to be doing in 20 years? And it might not be in solar. It might be their, HVAC company or something else. But the trades are a great opportunity for people. And America is, I don't know, we're filled with people that build things and make things. And I get excited about it. So thanks for sharing that part of your story. Um, Tell me more about developing the next generation and some of the kids that are the young adults that are you're finding. Is it hard to convince them that they might have a different path than the path that their parents had, or the path that they kind of thought was the only one available to them?
Yeah, that's a good question, Jeff. I think it's a little bit more than just their parents. I would probably say that their parents is probably on the lower end of that spectrum of influence. I think the reality is that um, a lot of these kids, because we talk to them and we actually recruit them, believe it or not, we recruit a lot of them through Instagram and even TikTok now, right? Because that's where that gen lives. And what you notice is that a lot of these kids, man, they kind of want to be rich tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like they're looking at it as if they either build an app or they become a business. I love there's a huge hype in entrepreneurship, right? Which is not necessarily a bad thing. However, there's not a realistic kind of mentorship there's and entrepreneurship is not for everybody. As much as it's a country where it gives an opportunity for everybody, it's not for everybody, right? I tell these kids all the time, like, listen, you know, some of the number two, you don't have to be the number one guy. The number two, the number three, the number four, the number five can be just as rich, just as successful, and just as influential as the number one guy is, right? So you need to figure out where you fit into this game and not get sidetracked by this entrepreneurship thing because so I work with this program called DECA, not DACA, DECA. It's an international program that develops emerging leaders in entrepreneurships. They're either in high school getting ready to go to college or in college getting ready to get into a career. And the thing that we see there is that they all want to start a day by night business where they want to go raise millions of dollars, and if they don't do that successfully, they think they're a failure, right? So that's one. That's the entrepreneurship thing needs certainly more mentorship and more clear advice of like, hey, that the guy that builds an app or goes raises millions of dollars at age 16 is the anomaly. Like it's not. It's one out of 100,000, if that, right? Maybe even one out of a million. So don't focus on that. Like focus on what it really takes to build a business. That would be my first message to these kids who don't necessarily want to go work for somebody, but rather want to build their business. And then there's the other folks who we develop, and that is that nobody reaches out to them, Jeff. Like nobody puts out a hand and says, "Hey, man, come give this a shot. What do you have to lose?" Like here's, put on a vest, put on a hard hat, and jump in this machinery. Go, work in a crazy cool, solar farm or rooftop, and install the new technology. And guess what? Here's an ascension program. You don't have to be a laborer forever. Like it's gonna be totally dictated on how hard you want to work and what you want to do after work. If you want to go home and watch Netflix and drink beer, bet your ass there's going to be somebody else who's going home and opening up that NEC code book and doing their OSHA training, right? And if you follow these steps, you're looking at it right here, baby. Like because that's what I did, and that fires these kids up, and they don't know better, right? The trick is to get them off their couch because they really are. That's where they're at, Jeff. They're not working. A lot of these kids are just literally sitting on the couch and saying, "Hey, like, don't listen to what the rest." I'm not to say the whole stimulus thing isn't needed. It absolutely is needed for the right type of folks, but is it for you? Right? I mean, do you have your both hands and your both feet? Do you have the capability of working? Then don't. Your life purpose is work, right? We come here to work and be the best versions of ourselves. Come give us a shot, try it out, and see if you like it. And they end up loving it, Jeff, especially when they're surrounded by a good culture. about with a group of folks who want to see them grow and develop. And I tell them all the time, you come work here for a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. We all have our milestone. No, nobody's meant to be here forever. All I want is that when you leave here, that you leave as a better person than when you arrived. Right? You want to go start your own business, you want to go be a competitor, go for it. I'll kick your ass in the field when the time comes to tell them. I'm not afraid. But I just want you to leave being a better person.
Well, that's a pretty big difference from, you know, what going to work means for a lot of folks might mean, you know, becoming an entry level person at a,
Yeah.
McDonald's, or going and, picking and packing at a distribution center, or dialing for dollars in a phone bank. I'm not really excited about any of that stuff, and being treated as, employee number 687, that's your number. You don't get a name. That's much different from being that new kid in the back of a truck with maybe three other people that look like me and that have been there for a while and are happy. I was like, oh, maybe there's a future for me that's different from what I thought. I want to get back to real quick. You said something about it's not necessarily just the parents that might have influenced these people for what options are open to them. So what else is it? Is it society and television, or tell me more?
You go to a high school kid, or you ask them, hey, you want to go work in construction? It's not sexy for them, right? What's sexy for them? Financial industry, suited and booted, and working at a skyscraper, working for the next startup. That whole entrepreneur glamour life. I think. So where does it come from? It comes from society. It comes from social media. It comes from that all the success that we see, all these people post, which I would argue to say that 90% of it is fake. That's a story for another day. I see your thumbs up. I don't. It's that they don't realize how badass it actually is. Like how, like I heard we were working on this carport. We were demolishing a carport commercial solar system, like a little under a megawatt, right? And we had Bobcat jackhammers, right? We had like three of those, and then this huge. It was a bigger. I forget what the term is, but it was a bigger machinery with the jackhammer, because we were taking these columns that were encased in these sonic tubes out of the ground, right? And the only way to do it was to just beat it up. And so here we had. I think it was like four guys, four apprentices who had been with us for less than probably at that time like 3 months, right? And here we have him in these machineries, and it's raining, right? It's raining. They got their ponchos on, whatever. It's raining. They're in these heavy machineries, and they're just going to town, man. Just demolitioning like 100 columns or something, right? And I heard one of the guys say, "It's like, hey, man, I felt like I was in a dream when I was in that machine. Like this, the whole scenario felt like I was in a dream, like in a video game dream of doing a badass work, getting paid prevailing wage, right?" And so it's so badass, man. I mean, you're an electrician by trade for all intents purposes, right? Once you start wiring stuff and hooking up voltages, in my eyes, you're an electrician. You're a specialty electrician that's in photovoltaics, but you're an electrician nonetheless. You're working with heavy machineries. You're working with plans, engineering. You're doing interconnections with switch gears, super dangerous work. I like to tell people like, hey, when we get into these switch gears, or when we're troubleshooting these combiner boxes or these inverters, you're kind of like a surgeon. You're going into surgery, and you gotta be ready. You gotta have your tools ready. You gotta have your PPE ready, and you gotta be focused. And it's just I think that's it. I think that if we did a better, and that's why I try to be. If you go on some of my Instagram and Facebook posts, I like to post some of this stuff, because I think that's really what excites this new younger generation. They need to see that it's fun, right? We can't just tell them, hey, come work. Like they got to see like, hey, that's pretty cool. Like I can see myself doing that, and what I can make good money doing it too. Like, okay, now you're talking. So I would.
And this is not going to be like shut down and exported either. It's the only way to install solar or decommission solar is here in America. We can't, it's not like this industry is going to be shipped off to Asia someday. It really is a long term. And if anything, if you look at the numbers and you, even the more pessimistic and conservative projections, is we've got to double and double again and double again. It's the number of people that we need is a little bit frightening. And I think it's, a lot of what you're talking about here is trying to make it exciting to the target demographic of these younger folks. How do we reach them? How do we get them involved? How do we keep them once we've recruited them? How do we kind of give them an ascension option and a path forwards to continue to grow? I think we need to double down on that and really amplify that. Obviously, you're doing it, you're figuring it out, and you're collaborating with some others. DECA is a great program. We'll have links to that in the show notes. What if I gave you a magic wand, Cesar, and said, okay, we're gonna look forwards to the solar decade, and we're going to have to get these numbers of people out there pulling wire, pounding posts, moving modules around. What would you do with that magic wand in order to really take it to the next level? I mean, obviously, I don't have a magic wand, and so this is kind of a fun little program. It's like a hypothetical. If you had magic powers, what kinds of levers would you pull, or what kinds of things might we wish for in order to get the workforce at every level that we're going to need?
Let me answer that in a little different way, Jeff, because I think it really ultimately comes down to leadership. It comes down to people like you and I, right? Because you can start getting into policy and stewardship and all that, and first of all, that's not my background, so I'm not even going to pretend like I know what we can do there. I mean, obviously there's going to be initiatives that the government can help us to move this forward, right? Absolutely, without a doubt. But I think really what's missing here is true character leadership. I mean, this generation needs to know who they're working for, when, why they're working for them. And so I think I don't know, like if I had a wand, I could say, hey, you need to build more people that understand the responsibility that they have with their sphere of influence to these kids. Like it's just it's that's it, man. It's the leadership, it's the business owners, it's the business executives, it's those folks. Like nobody, these kids are not going to come work for you if you're not somebody that they can truly look up to, and they can follow. And if you're not willing to do what it is you're preaching, then they're gonna sniff that out. So if I had a wand, man, I'd make myself a billionaire, and then it'd be all your problem, and I'd go away, retire. That's
Well, one of the things you said about they're going to sniff this out, I think that is a truth that I think people are starting to figure out, is that the younger folks today that we're hoping to have join our teams, obviously the paycheck, is it $10 or $20? That's a factor. But more and more, people want to belong to something. They want to believe in something. They want to realize, that they're having an impact. They're making an impact. And part of that is that kind of like, you know, overblown image of the entrepreneur, this overnight success. I think we do have this kind of maybe Cinderella fantasy of, yeah, you just make the right app at the right time and bam, you're Elon Musk. And I think there's a lot to be said of, kind of pointing out that there's a lot of different levels of success, a lot of different ways to measure success, and just about all of them, it's not a magic, lucky overnight thing. It takes hard work and trial and error and perseverance. I'm thinking we're starting to work with the trade schools and trying to reach out into the joint vocational schools at the high school level. And what I'm finding is that we're not alone. And the IBEW is out there, and the Carpenters Union is out there. Construction's booming, and people are looking at the need for more and more talent, more and more folks. And so we're competing with people. And so it's not just trying to get people to consider, working with their hands and growing through construction, because I think we're tilted towards like college and white collar and suits and boots, or maybe not boots, just suits is success, and boots means you're a failure. I think we're slowly coming around to realizing that we need everybody, and that you can be a good person and successful even if you wear gloves, for part of your job. But trying to reach these folks, I think that's a big part of it, because obviously we're going to be recruiting and trying to steal folks from other industries that are already out there in the workforce. But reaching somebody young when they're really on the learning curve, and that's the other thing. It's hard getting out there in the field and doing it in the weather is a big factor, and that's not everybody can do it.
Jeff, I would say it's even worse. So you mentioned, there's other trades, other industries that are there we're competing against. I'd say within the solar industry, it's even worse because, see, we're stealing from each other, and so we said, okay, enough, no more stealing from anybody, no more recruiting agencies. If we want this done right, we're going to go do it ourselves. And so we had a huge paradigm shift. It took a while to ramp up again. I literally was driving around these farms, these field farms, during work, catching them at lunch, catching them after work, going to the grocery stores and with pamphlets and saying, hey, like, you're interested in solar? Let me tell you about it. And it's been absolutely a big shifter in our culture.
Let me ask you a pointed question. If I did that, if I did the same thing you were doing, but here I am, Mr. Whitey guy, gringo guy, would I be as successful? Or do you think that you're able to do that because they can look at you and say, "Oh, I feel safe"?
I don't think so, Jeff. I don't think that should be a factor at all. Especially, I mean, in Ohio, right? I mean, you're not going to have the Latino workforce. I mean, you have a different type of workforce.
We got a lot of traveling folks coming through for harvest time. But again, yeah, yeah. I guess I'm just thinking, like, Latinos recruiting Latinos seems like it's going to be easier than another white person coming in promising. And it's not just Latinos. Maybe it's, Black folks in the city, Native Americans on the res. Who knows? I'd like to hope that we could build the trust and build the bridges and reach out. But I think that there's a lot of bad blood and bad history and broken promises in the past that kind of make it harder to do so. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, we just need to try and learn as we go and figure it out.
Those are good points. I'll tell you this. I'll tell you my story. Living in California, moved here when I was 2 years old. I was born in Mexico. My parents brought me when I was young. I'll tell you this, man, a huge misconception, right? And it took me a while until I grew older to realize that it wasn't what I was thinking. I used to complain to my parents and say, hey, mom, dad, you don't really know what's going on out there. I'm being bullied, there's racism and this and that. And I truly believed that for a while, Jeff. And then I realized as I grew older and I looked back and I said, you know what? No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. I mean, there was bully like there is in everything else, like, but was there real racism in my school? No. I think that society had implanted that into my brain to make me feel like the victim. When in reality, I think I was doing some of the bullying, if I was to be honest with myself. So I think that's probably one of the problems, man. That I would say that if you went out to the fields and you said, "Hey guys, I'm coming here, the owner of the company, and I want to change your life and I want to give you a career, give me a shot. Come check us out." I think that any immigrant, no matter what color, race you are, is gonna have mad respect for that and be like, "Man, the owner of the company is willing to come out here." And like, who does that? See, if you want change, you have to be willing to do the things that other people aren't, right? And I think the color scheme. I don't know, man. I think you might actually be more successful. You're better looking than me.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I got to grow my beard out. Well, I appreciate that perspective, and that's refreshing. Heard a couple of things. I totally agree that the victim mentality can be a huge, huge factor in lots of different ways. For lots of different roles and people. White, brown, or black, or female. And it's nuanced. It's everyone's got a different experience. So I appreciate you sharing kind of your experience. And then the second piece, you talked about it earlier, is that part of leadership is walking your talk and and actually, doing what you're going to say you're going to do and doing the hard things. And you just came back to it there that I might be, as we try to figure out how to recruit, how to get more talent on our team. Um, if I genuinely am out there trying to reach out and recruit folks and tell them about how they can make a good living in the solar industry, I think you're right. I think that might be, I need to go try it. I'm going to have to take something out of your playbook. And maybe some of our listeners are going to be saying, okay, I'm done writing big checks to recruiting firms. If I'm writing those big checks, I could probably invest a couple of hours of my time or focus on the right team and come up with a way to go out and reach these people that might be fantastic parts of the team. They're used to working in hot weather. They're happy to get probably a better paycheck and a fairer deal. And they got a path forwards where, like you said, they crack a book at night or get some certs along the way. After a couple years in solar, you can rise up pretty quickly and start working with a clipboard, more so than with a shovel. And that's where we're at right now. It's a boom time. Well, I could go on and on forever with you on this, and I'm probably going to, continue this conversation and get some more ideas for how I can make my company more successful. And I appreciate you sharing this. I would encourage all of our listeners to connect on LinkedIn at least and start following you. You put out some great content and some real thoughtful pieces. You're vulnerable and honest as well along the way, which is not a real popular thing to be, as people kind of puff themselves up and tell a story that makes them look better than real life. I am not yet on TikTok, but now I just might have to get an account so I can find out what kind of stuff is out there, because I agree that you got to reach people where they're at. So this is fun. What's your TikTok handle? How can people find you on TikTok?
I don't even remember. Caesar, it's got to be Cesar B, man. I'm pretty old school.
We'll put it in the show notes, all the different socials, et cetera. And we're gonna have to transition over to the Solar for All Better Together section. So you've shared a lot of your wisdom that you've accumulated over the years. What's some wisdom that you've learned? What is there an author or some kind of a book that's really helped you over the years? You want to share with our listeners?
I think we all have books in our life in different seasons of our life that you can look back and say, hey, I remember that book. I was in this season of my life. I think so. I'm reading a couple books, and I'm happy to share that with you. But I think my overall message would be, if you're not reading, you're not living. I tell my guys all the time, probably the single most important factor in my ability to leave the trenches and get, and kind of, I don't think that I'm anywhere near this success. I think that I'm a lot better where I was back then. I was broke back then, and now I'm not, and it's a lot better not to be broke. So that's all I can say as to success. But I'd say the number one most single important factor has been the knowledge that are in these books. Like they have without a doubt changed my life over and over and over again. Rich Dad Poor Dad, when I was 19 years old, I realized, I don't have to be broke. Money is not evil, right? John C. Maxwell, when I was going through one of the hardest times in my life, decided to go in business for the first time. It was like 6-7 years ago, and totally failed, and just different books. So right now I'm reading two books, which is the company is reading. So we have a book of the month program, right? And it's we haven't enforced it, but we allow people to jump in. And so we got I think there's like 10 of us right now. And so we're reading Winning by Tim S. Grover, Michael Jordan's trainer, right? Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant's trainer. Yeah. Really, no, really.
I think he was in a podcast. I think I did hear Tim Ferriss talk about interviewing him in a podcast.
Yeah.
So now I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
He wrote Relentless, and now he came out with his new book called Winning. So we're all reading that, and it's just kind of it's a perfect. It ties back to what we were saying, right? It's like when he asked people like, hey, describe winning to me, and the majority of the people would describe winning as success, amazing, great, achievement, right? And those are all good words. But then when you ask the real elite right? The Kobe Bryants, the Michael Jordans, the Dwayne Johnsons, like, and then the business gurus themselves. You ask them, hey, describe winning. They describe it quite differently. They use words like nasty, gross, grinding, brutal, and then Kobe Bryant, of course, everything, right? So it goes to show you, like, so anyway. So this book is teaching us, like, hey, man, you want to get to the top of the rank. Like, this is a competition at the end of the day. Like I tell we're not here to be happy. We're here to be the best versions of ourselves, and that's not going to be easy, right? And here, take it by the icons of the world, the Michael Jordans and the Kobe Bryants, who he mentions a lot in these books. Their work ethic, their ability to think long term, their discipline, and the reality to know that, hey, if you want the Ferraris and the mansions and the skyscrapers and the jets, your output is here, then you're just signing yourself up for a miserable life. Either do one of two things: drop your expectations, or increase your output, right? But stop living this unbalanced expectancy of life, because it's not going to happen. So, anyways, we're reading Winning, and then another book that I would mention is The Rhythm of Life by Matthew Kelly, which I'm reading now, and again, it just goes through, like, the factors of life, which it all comes down to this, man, like, to be the best versions of ourselves, regardless of what it is you're doing in whatever field, in whatever sector. You come here to be the best versions of yourself. So I'll leave you with those two books.
Wow, super. And thanks for some of the backstory and details there. And really flipping awesome that you guys have a book club. We've been talking about that at our company for a while, but have not executed. So getting me another reason to strive to be a better version of who I could be as a leader and who we could be as a company. How about piece of advice or wisdom, any kind of saying or something like that you want to pass along?
Who are we talking to? Business leaders, or are we talking to the workers?
Well, the audience of this podcast is more likely to be business folks, although I'm hoping that we're also reaching some aspiring workers that want to get into the industry, or some folks that are already in the industry and want to improve themselves. So I guess the answer is maybe both. I guess maybe we're setting ourselves up for two pieces of wisdom.
I'd say this, man. I would say the world needs you. The world needs you more now than ever. And I don't mean to come off this, you know, hoorah, passionate guy, Jeff. I really don't, man. I hope I'm not coming off. But the world needs these people. The world needs CEOs and business leaders today more than ever, right? And for those of us that are sitting in the back line counting our chips, realize that the country needs you more than ever. And we've gained from this success. And it's just crazy times, man. And I hate to think that my kids or my grandkids might not have the same opportunities that I have. I see it. I travel the world, and I'm working in Latin America, and it's not the same. And so I would say the world needs you. So if you're thinking about doing something, getting out there, being more vocal, encouraging this new generation and workforce, please don't stay in the sidelines. The world needs you right now.
Time to get up off the bench and do our thing. Well, that's inspiring and great stuff. And I appreciate that. Thank you, Cesar. How about music? Let's talk about our Better Together 1+1 playlist. We've got a playlist starting with all of our guests contributing 2 songs, something old school standby favorite that they always go back to, plus something fresh and new that might be up and coming or we might not have heard of. And it is diverse. We've got classical music, we got jazz, we got hip hop, we got rock and roll. People are coming up with things that have something to do with solar, and plenty of things that are just stuff that they love. It's on Spotify, it's on Apple Music. You can link to it at the solarforall.show.
All right. I bet you've heard all the genres, but I can almost guarantee you haven't heard banda yet. So I wouldn't be representing my gente latina if I didn't throw out some corridos out there, right? Which is a banda mix. So this is an old school song, but it's by Antonio Aguilar. Yes, mi gusto es. It means my taste is, and I will do what I want to do with it. So that's my go-to, man, with a little glass of tequila. It brings me back to my roots. And then something fresh. Uh, the artist is called Masego. It's a real cool, hip, jazzy. I don't even know how to describe it, but it's Masego, Masego. And I don't have a song in particular, but this guy just chills me out with it's just a real cool, chill vibe.
Awesome. Well, we'll probably put the kind of the top hit that comes up when we
Yes.
look up Masego, and put that in the playlist. And now you got me even more curious. See, I sometimes I think I do this podcast just so I can talk to cool people and learn new things, and also get more songs on my playlist. So I'm looking forward to it. And you know, thanks so much, obviously, for being a guest on the podcast, and sharing your experience and your thoughts with our listeners. And also just thank you for all the work you're doing. You really are walking the talk about helping others, making the world a better place, and showing folks that what success can look like. And I really appreciate it. I want to thank our sponsors, Third Sun Solar and New Resource Solutions and the Amicus Solar Cooperative. And I want to thank our listeners. If this is important stuff to you and you've benefited from it, I want to call on you to spread the word, share this with your socials, subscribe, give us some stars and some thumbs ups so we rise in the ranks and reach more people. You can follow us on all the major platforms, and the show notes from this and other web podcasts are at solarforall.show. That's SHOW. And again, we've got a big job ahead of us, and we need everybody on the team. And I've learned a lot, and maybe some very specific actionable advice on how we're going to go out and get some more people on our team here in Ohio, kind of learning from the way you guys are doing it in California, Cesar. So
It's been a true pleasure, Jeff. Love what you're doing out there, man. Keep doing what you're doing.